Hey everybody, I'm Duane Carey, and welcome to The Point, where we spend 10 minutes or less with one interesting guest. Today, our guest is Drew Brinkotter of Goose, which is arguably the Impact team's favorite software out there, and we'll talk about that more later. But Drew, thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate it, Duane. Just love to maybe introduce myself a little bit. So, Drew
Please.
Brinkotter, co-founder, CEO of Goose. We are an operating system focused on multi-service providers doing boarding, daycare, grooming, training. No matter if you are a single location with 30 to 50 dogs per day, pets per day, or a location doing 2 to 300 with multiple locations, brands, scaling and consolidating and growing.
And as I was starting to kind of allude to, we have got uh, Impact has 110, I think, facilities around the country, and those who are using Goose are some of our most successful. And it's amazing the data we are able to get out of Goose to truly track what we're doing from a marketing standpoint. So we greatly appreciate you guys.
And likewise, it's been wonderful working with you all as a partner in the industry that appreciates and understands data clarity and the power of
All
focusing
about the
in the
data,
right
baby.
spots.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, well, let's get to it. So, just as a reminder to our listeners, we start with a quick intro. Then the meat of this is 8 minutes or so in between of one solid point, and then we'll just end with a little outro of a shout out to anybody of your choice. So, Drew, what's your point?
Well, you actually gave me a great segue into it, Duane, on the data front. And something that we've been working very diligently on at Goose is helping our clients and those operating on Goose understand that data is powerful, it's necessary, but focusing on the data that matters is what's paramount. And then also understanding that focus and really balance is what's more important. So what do I mean about that? What we know is north of 85% of pet care business owners state that more data actually makes decisions harder, right? Too much data, too much going on. So we are trying to be helpful in the sense that we're boiling it down to really four key areas. They are pet counts, average daily pet rate, labor as a percentage of sales, and then customer satisfaction. Those are the four what we would call hero metric areas that if you're thinking about how many pets are coming in my door, what am I making from them per day by service, how am I servicing them, and how much does that cost me as a percentage of sales, and then am I getting credit for the good work I'm doing in terms of customer satisfaction? If you can focus in on those areas and understand that there's balance across them, one area can impact the other potentially negatively. If you're pushing too hard on maybe price or revenue management, you might negatively impact customer satisfaction, but it needs to be done with a focus of balance. And we, as Goose, um, really try to provide that clarity, that trending, and then think about tools and leverage you can pull within those various areas.
Where did those four things come from? Is that from watching the data and this is what makes people successful or what?
Very much from really two directions. First and foremost, it's from operating in the industry ourselves, right? That kind of gave us a bedrock understanding of what moves the needle, being on the front lines and actually trying these things. And then
Hey, Can we
second,
just
have
can we just pause there for a second?
yeah,
So your business partner, Chris, second generation owner, I think, of a
yeah, technically
daycare.
third because his
Okay.
his mother started it with his grandfather in 1962, so he has literally grown up in the industry. And Chris did petbookings.com, which was one of the first booking engines in the industry with revenue optimization, kind of really honed in on this revenue unlock, pet counts, and seamless booking meets revenue management.
Okay.
Myself from a brand what is now known as Yardstick, 5 locations, 3 in Nashville, 2 in Dallas. I do not. I spend my days at Goose. I have a partner there, a co-founder that leads that and has built out Yardstick. I departed prior to opening up the first store. But really, that my lens would be the yardstick front, Chris being Kendall Arbor Lane and Pet Bookings.
So you guys are not only the data gurus, the programmers, the people that are building these systems, you also really are heavily involved in the industry.
We are living the insights and, working with the tools, right, that we build at Goose. And I think now extrapolating that across the industry, seeing what works,
Mm,
and really our job is to standardize and simplify, right? When you're working with an industry that has a lot of variability, we need to have a common language, vernacular, a way to
yes.
talk about benchmarking, and so you can assess if you're doing well or maybe not, or if there's opportunity to improve.
Perfect. So I interrupted you. You were making the point of the two functions really of where these four hero data sets came from, and you were ready to make the second one.
Yeah, and the second one being, I think you had asked Duane the kind of where we get these insights. It's very much from operating ourselves, and the second being, as an operating system within the industry, being able to see who's using what within the platform and what results they're getting, and kind of thinking about from a first principles perspective, like what is this hospitality industry really oriented around? And we would go as far as say is that it can be simplified into these four areas, and every other metric is a trickle down of
Mm.
these areas. So pet counts, average daily pet rate, labor as a percentage of sales, and customer satisfaction. Almost every other metric you think about fits within those categories in some way.
So when a new client comes your way that's been operating for 10 years and they've done things a certain way, and they look at your system and they say, well, I'd kind of like to do it this way, or I'd kind of like to do it that way. Can you accommodate that? How do you address that? Do you push them toward these four heroes, or do you accommodate pretty much everything that they want to
Yeah,
do?
yeah, I think it's like most owners are thinking about, optimizing in one or multiple areas, right? Some, frankly, are happy with their business growth and level, and they may be thinking about customer satisfaction and maybe getting more efficient on the labor. But everybody kind of has something they need to do, right? And
Hmm.
that's why they're talking to us, or they're starting a business, right, for an operating system. What we focus on a lot is, we build for the 80% of the industry
Mm.
that has a similar, the standard configurations that cover the 85% of the industry. It is our belief that as this industry grows and, we are consolidating, right? We're under that wave, that 20% of the variability will kind of come in, right, and converge. But I think it's more of, look, if you're want to increase your average daily pet rate. So you want to unlock price, it's not, you could raise price dynamically in Goose, but you could also use our merchandising tools to increase add-ons, right? You could automate fees or things that your customers want to acquire from you that you're not charging for. You could think about it from a policies perspective, so deposits, cancellations, and really automating that, which is going to drive fee revenue in theory. And then you can also appreciate, discount. It's a tool. It works against you. It could
Mm.
drive more volume, but it might detract from your average daily pet rate. So we actually try to break it down. Average daily pet rate is a normalized way of thinking about how much I make per pet in my facility for boarding,
Yes.
daycare, or grooming. But really, it's offer, add-on, fee, and discount, right? If you understand the underlying components, we have tools to drive each of those components. And that, I think, contextualize and helps simplify like what an operating system does, and can help you with. So we can point out goals, or opportunities within your data. You may come into us because you want to execute on certain opportunities that you've found in your business. We try to look at it in this context and help folks appreciate that you might want to focus there, but hey, let's not do that at the detriment of your customer satisfaction. And here's how you measure that satisfaction, maintain that satisfaction, and so on.
So I think what I'm hearing is, so with this, your point here being that these four hero metrics are what you've based Goose around. The reason you've done that is because that's what actually drives success and allows these pet facilities to thrive. So you mentioned 80/20, and you're really developing for the 80%. It sounds to me like if I'm over here in the 20%, I probably want to come over here and conform to your 80% because you're doing that for a reason. Is that fair?
In essence, correct. Very well said. It ultimately, it's your choice, it's your business. You can run it any way you want. But if you're over there in the 20%, you might be doing things that are not consistent or value creating. You might be working against yourself. Maybe you have an overly complex merchandising plan with, multiple levels of memberships, and it may seem like you're servicing the customer need well, but if you look at the
Mm-hmm.
data, one of those memberships is driving 8% of your volume. You're
Yeah.
creating complexity for your staff. You're working against your labor, right? Inefficiency. So you're doing all these things to service the customer need, but in reality, it's not producing you any better results because your labor costs are higher.
So you might be serving the customer need well, but not the needs of your business well.
Correct. And so drawing back to the point, it's in the simplest form, if you focus on these four areas and understand how they work together, can create a mechanism for you to create continuity. So you're looking at it every month, every quarter, and understanding, hey, I did this quarter. What did it result in? Did I push the metrics the right way? Did I see some go down? Rinse and repeat. You're going to be much better off than maybe focusing on one specific area at any one time, right? You have to do it consistently and with balance. And ultimately, you will be in a much better spot than you were
Mhm.
yesterday.
Wonderful. So listeners, I'm hearing, and this is what I hear from my employees who deal with pet facilities using Goose. But one of the biggest things I'm hearing from this is using Goose is not only a way to run your facility, it's also an entree into best practices. So, Drew, with that, I'm gonna shift to the third focus because this is how time flies
Sure.
on the point. Can you give us a shout out as we wrap up?
Yeah, I would love to. You know, what has gotten us to this place in Goose is uh, partners and early adopters and supporters from this industry. What I love about pet generally and pet services specifically is it's very much a pay it forward industry. People are
Hmm.
extremely willing to give you their time, insights, and expertise. We have earned some of that expertise through our own operations and being on the ground, but a lot of the things that we've come to know have come from the folks that took a chance on us. And those people know who they are. Some of the folks that adopted Goose 2 months after we introduced the operating system in the early 23 timeframe.
Which was a
And they
leap of
can
faith, right?
is a huge leap of faith. You're taking your business, you're putting it on a, in some ways an unproven operating system, and you're trusting us to get the job done. And so without those early adopters and backers of what Chris and I and the team have put together, we wouldn't be here today. And thankfully they were there. We continue to grow nicely. Um, and what's propelling us forward is this gravitational kind of pull that is around this idea of delivering kind of a modern optimized way of running your business on a new age platform.
Love it. Drew, give us your web address, please, real quick.
We are Goose, GOOSE.pet, goose.pet.
Goose.pet. Drew Brinkotter, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate it, Duane. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye bye.